scene.
And that is how we play people who don't know what Zoom is.
It's only been 2 years.
Someday we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still, every single day, I'm sure you do too, every single day have a meeting with somebody where everyone has to shout, "You're on mute." I mean, you just did it to me. Like, it's
right, but that was fucked up because you weren't on mute and I was just shouting at you. That was not cool. Yeah, and not only that, but then also people who don't. It's a weird double-edged sword. The Zoom sword is a weird double-edged sword because there are the people who are on mute and talking, and you are like, "You're on mute. You have to unmute yourself." But then there are also the people who don't understand that,
who are like opening potato chip bags.
When I'm teaching a class of 10 people, and like I'm talking or somebody else is talking, and then all of a sudden you hear like just who knows what random noise. You're just like, and you can never tell who it is. Like I can never immediately go, Johnny, little Johnny, turn your mute on. Students are always Johnny, right? They're always little Johnny. Anyway, this is The Long Shot. It's a podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Sean Conroy. With me today on the podcast, the other host of the podcast, Amber Kenny, is here.
Pew, 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 pew.
She has she's exercising her Second Amendment right. She has guns and she just fired them. Not to get into the whole Second Amendment thing, but how exciting that Justice Breyer is retiring. That's fun news. It'll cause a big political upheaval. The Supreme Court will go from 6-3 to 6-3. So it'll all work out. We always start the show with a segment like it's called Check-In, and I think there's an issue on the table that we have to address.
Oh no.
That affects both of us in different ways. And we got into it a little bit over text this week and had a little bit of a disagreement.
I don't know even if it was a disagreement. I was just teasing you.
I know. But it was funny. So Wordle, you're into the Wordle thing.
Yeah, I just realized I don't know if I did it. I had to have done it today. Yeah, It's fun. It's like relaxing and sweet. It's like a crossword puzzle, but
simpler.
A lot less time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, and just for a little backstory, if anybody doesn't know what Wordle is yet, I can't help you because you absolutely must know what it is.
You simply must.
But Amber texted me her Wordle score one day earlier.
Well, I really didn't think I was going to get it. And I was excited. I was like, oh, this will annoy Sean. I wanted to share with somebody. So I decided it'd be you.
And so I just texted back, aggressively avoiding. And then I forget what you said, but like appreciate the annoyance or something like that. And
I think I said respect the annoyance.
Respect the annoyance, yeah. And it was just funny because I obviously I wasn't annoyed, but like I have been aggressively avoiding it. And then I read that article that I sent you, and I read another article, not with the same thesis, but also about Wordle today. That was just about how Wordle was invented and how it's developed and why people like it and all this stuff. But the article I sent to Amber was about how like Wordle clearly was appealing to a lot of people. And so it suddenly became like the way the social media algorithms work is that if something is recognized as being appealing to a lot of people, it gets pushed way harder to way more people. So it's aggressively out there. So I was getting everybody's those little squares and scores and whatever. And for whatever reason, my reaction, and I mean, surprise, surprise, my reaction was to go, I don't know what this is, but I am not interested in participating in this thing that is clearly,
for some reason,
taking over.
Like that is your natural reaction to everything.
But it was like I was being pushed to
You felt bullied into liking something.
Yes. Like I was supposed to react a particular way. And I even got from a couple of people, and I'm sure this is probably, well, I don't know, maybe this wasn't what you were thinking, but like that it would be something I would like and you should do this.
Well, you
and it's
like
fun.
Words and
yeah, right. And
it isn't like how we always talk about Jamie, but like how he would fall into like whatever
Tesseract,
whatever word bubble game that he would play, and he'd be addicted to it. You can't. The whole point is that it's one puzzle a day.
Well, I think that's one of the things people love about it is that it's so simple. It comes out, it's one word, everybody gets it at the same time. You either get it or you don't get it. You get a score, and that's it.
The next day.
And then there's nothing you do. And the thing I was reading about today was how this is sort of a hearkening back to when the internet was still fun, when there was still stuff you could enjoy on the internet. Because in the article that I sent to you, a lot of it was about not just my reaction, but like if I had gone from what I was doing, which was like, I just don't, for whatever reason, I feel like I'm being told to become involved in this, and I do not wish to become involved in it. If I had gone one step farther and started, like, I guess a lot of people are doing this as well, because of course it's on social media. It's like people are responding and going, fuck you and your Wordle score. Who gives a shit?
Right.
You fucking dummy. Yeah. And so that was kind of the point of that thing, was like, it's such an iconic example of something,
of the life cycle
of like a harmless thing that gets just weaponized by people for no reason because they have to react in some way.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the parts of the article was about how it's equally annoying making Wordle your personality as making hating Wordle your personality.
Right. And both of those personalities would just be personalities that you would have online.
Right. Inline?
Upon line. So finally, we're 13 years in. We're finally getting somewhere on this podcast. But both of those would just be representative of you upon line. So not necessarily
and for like a month of your life.
Well, and that's the other interesting thing I was reading about today. So I'm sure you already know this because there's not a whole lot behind the game, but the guy who invented the game, I
know nothing about who invented.
Well, basically he chose 5,000 words. I'm trying to remember. I don't have all the statistics in my head, of course, but whatever the case, he started thinking about it. What is it? 5-letter words that they do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was like, he just made a list of like common 5-letter words just out of the, I don't know what, the dictionary, the encyclopedia, the thesaurus, some type of Bible. Reference book. Yeah, I don't know. Warner's English Grammar, Roget's thesaurus, whatever the case, Pilgrim's Progress. He made a list of like
Wolf.
Canterbury Tale, all the original great works of literature by people who have passed away. And he just made a list, and then he went to, I feel like he made it as a present for his wife or something. He made this game up as a present for his wife, and he asked her like which of these words she knew. So if she didn't know the word, it was off the list. So in other words, it's not like
there's no scientific.
Right. There's no obscure, that's actually how initially the list was. He did get a lot of it from Canterbury Tales, but then he eliminated most of those and Beowulf because, Old Saxon and English and, but anyway, it was all like common usage words. So in other words, the point is not to stump you. You're gonna get the word ultimately. And then he just made a list of 5,000 of them. So there are words now for this game to go on for 5 years, basically. Like,
yeah, I think we're only at like in the 200s right now.
Yeah, it like blew up all of a sudden. I feel like I'm sure it started way before this, but it's been like the last 3 weeks or so that I'm just like,
well, it's gonna be about 200 days.
Fair enough.
But I being blown up.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when I started seeing it on Facebook, on Twitter, everywhere I looked, there was just that graphic image of cubes and numbers and this many moves and blah, blah, blah. And so the potential is that if this is something somebody likes to do, they could do this for the next 5 years and do it every day and live a happy and contented life.
Yeah, there's something very soothing about it. And the fact that it has that sharing component, as much as it's annoying to you, is the simple genius of it.
Right.
Because that's how they didn't have to have marketing campaigns. It did it itself.
And it's not even like you look at it and go, whoa, that looks like cool graphics.
You're just like, really, what even is it?
Yeah. So anyway, I am sorry if I offended you with my
no offense. Well, I thought
no, sorry. I'm sorry that you were offended by my
the worst apology. And the point I was trying to make, and you probably understood it, but I'm still going to make it again.
Yeah.
Is that you could just enjoy it without participating in the public part of it at all. Because I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, is like kind of going back to what you're saying of making that your personality is people going like, look, I did this thing. 3 words, three guesses for 463, 312. I don't know what any of that stuff means, but
this is our second podcast talking about it, though, so maybe we're the problem.
Is it? Did we talk about Wordle before?
We talked about it last week. Yeah, that's why I texted you about it.
God, I'm losing my mind.
I quote, "Are you fucking with Wordle?" And then you got upset.
Oh, I did.
And that's why I texted you.
Oh, okay. So that puts everything in context. Now I
it wasn't at random. It was I knew that it would bother you.
This changes the entire conversation.
It was an educated chess move.
God damn it. It was so early in the day too.
And you were like, I'm avoiding it. I was like, yeah, I know. That's why I texted it to you.
Oh boy. Well, it is, of course, the year of the worm.
The bookworm, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think I have to bring this up. Some school board in Tennessee banned the graphic novel Mouse yesterday. I don't know if you saw anything about that. So there's a very famous graphic novel. Can
I just say something? And I may have said this before, but it's wild that I work in social media now because I'm on social media all the time, but like
social media or on social media?
Around it. But on my works accounts, like I'm working. So ironically, now that I work in social media, I'm very disconnected to what is going on social media in a very strange way. Anyway,
I don't understand how that is possible. Is it just that your work concentrates on different things? Or?
Yeah, I'm never at my personal page. I'm on the work page, and and I'm not looking at feeds. I'm looking at like people commenting on my comments.
Right. So it's very focused on
it's very
stuff for the company, the corporation, the organization.
I mean, like I try occasionally because it's good to know the temperature. But what I'm saying is I think it's ironic that now I work in social media. More often than not, when a friend says like, "Hey, did you see online?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I don't." Anyway, go on.
Well, this is all by way of saying there is a school board in Tennessee.
Oh, I heard that people were mad at Tennessee. That's all I heard, but I don't know why.
Well, that was also partially because of the Arrested Development song. But they had a meeting and they discussed this book. It's a graphic novel. It's called Mouse. It is about the Holocaust. It is a story of the artist's family in the Holocaust. And he uses in this graphic novel, which, by the way, I should say I have never read, he uses mice to represent the Jews. So the drawings are mice escaping from, and I don't, like I said, I've never read it, so I don't know how much further it goes than
like
that.
German shepherds or something.
Yeah, or cats, like, I don't know. But apparently it's a very powerful,
yeah, it sounds like it, even just in that description.
And there is, anyway, it's banned now in this curriculum in Tennessee.
Why?
Because there are a couple of curse words, and also, well, we'll come back to all of this, but there's a couple of curse words in it, and there's nudity in it. Now think about that for a second.
The Holocaust.
Not just the Holocaust,
they're
but mice.
Yeah.
They're mice. And apparently, because I saw the guy who created it, Art Spiegelman, on CNN this morning, and he is like everything you would expect of a graphic novelist who wrote about his family in the Holocaust. Like he was like vaping the whole time that they were doing it. And
no way.
Yes, he was great. Like he was just an eccentric character, but he said the scene in which there is nudity is the scene in which his mother tries to commit suicide and has just slit her wrists and is bleeding in a bathtub. And he said
they had no problem with the blood.
Well, he said it's but he also said it's like from very far away and it's overhead and it's very hard to make out what's going on. So like you really have to be looking like for boobs. It's just, so anyway, the school board had a meeting at which they discussed this. Mm-hmm. And the minutes of the meeting are up online, inline, available.
Around line.
Archived somewhere. And I read through it last night.
Oh my God.
And it's like a sketch. Like it reads to me as, I shouldn't even say that. If I read it as a sketch, I would be like, these people are not real. They're too dumb to be real. Like the way they're discussing this and arguing about this doesn't make sense for real human beings to be having this discussion. They're too fucking stupid.
Give me a taste. I understand that there's that. What are we talking about?
Well, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't have the thing, but it was like just the fixation of like, well, they were just fixated on, we can redact the letters, the after B, we can redact the next four letters so we don't see the word is what it is. But I think people still will understand the word so they know it. And that's a word that if one of our 8th grade students was walking down the hallway and said that word, we'd discipline them. So I feel like it's not okay to put that into the curriculum where they're forced to read something that uses that word. And then somebody else was like, well, we can just redact the whole thing. And then somebody was like, but then they won't know any of what it's supposed to be. It'll just be a blank space. Right. It was truly mind-boggling.
Like Catch 22.
Sorry, I didn't do what Jorge always said, which was turn my phone off before recording. So, yeah, it was just startling and sad because it was like, this is just going to get worse. Mm-hmm. There's going to be more of this shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have redacted that before I said it.
Well, the nudity piece.
Bizarre. So bizarre.
I learned something recently, and you may have already known this, but that there's like a direct correlation with how conservative a culture is with nudity and all of that, and how sexualized and how assaulted women are. What I mean is there are entire cultures where like breasts aren't even considered like it's not like a sexual thing because they're out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically as soon as you start hiding something, that's when people are like, ooh, gotta see.
Yeah.
And so like the more we're hiding bodies, the more in danger women are on some level. Like
the more in danger women are, but also the more in danger mice are. Like, that there's people who are going to get out there and fuck them some mice because of this book,
Right. No, but you know what I'm saying? Where like
I do. Yeah.
I think that people are like, oh, like we need to cover up our young girls to protect them. And it's like, maybe not. Like maybe we need to just get used to seeing what bodies look like, and then they won't be this like scary and sought after and like the mystery will be taken away, the bubble will be burst, and then we can just live our lives, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to, when I was out of college, I went to Europe for a while, and I remember going to the beach in France and like just being like, holy shit, like none of the women had tops on, you know what I mean? And like, so there I was like sitting on my little towel 10 feet away from this group of teenage girls with no shirts on, right. When I had just gotten out of 8 years of Catholic school. So of course I was like, holy shit, what is going? Yeah. And I know that that's a cultural thing, that it's like, who cares? But certainly, in Tennessee, those mice better be covered up head to toe because we don't want our young children seeing naked mice.
But even, and I don't have anything to back this up, but like sexual assault is like the more a culture makes their women cover up, the more likely if a single inch of skin is shown, an assault is much more likely, and it's her fault.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. And it makes a bizarre kind of sense,
because it makes it so tantalizing, and right. So yeah.
The forbidden fruit, so
right.
to speak, which, again, that was the Bible where Eve fucked everything up for everybody.
You should have put on a shirt.
Jesus Christ. I believe Adam had like a leaf in front of his dick, right? She didn't have anything.
That's canon.
Yeah. He at least knew better than to walk around without a leaf in front of his dick. But it just, it's shameful, and I don't mean to sound like I don't know what that sounds like, but like these people are so fucking dumb. They're so dumb. And they're fucking up kids' lives by being so fucking dumb. And that means the kids are going to end up being as dumb as they are and as fucked up as they are. So anyway, but it also made me realize I've never read that book, and that made me feel bad. So I have to do that. And I had a realization because, for whatever reason, in the last week, I've seen like 2 different lists of books you should read, or books you should have read, or books you should reread.
You piece of shit.
Some of them were a little aggressive. I'll agree. But anytime I see a list like that, that's like, these are the books every person over the age of 15 should have read by now, or whatever, I've never read any of those books. Like I've read a lot of books, and for whatever reason,
none of them are ship novels. So,
well, I do have more. I do have more diverse tastes than that. Yeah. But it's always funny to me that I'm like, I read a lot. Yeah, I definitely, ship novels are great, but
well, there's a lot of books out there. Like in your defense, it is,
right.
and that list maker, they want the clicks so that their advertiser, like, they just arbitrarily make a list. I'm sure they believe it, but there's no way that it's the end all be all list that every human should have read.
Maybe I should have a list of, but it's also funny because anytime you see a list like that where somebody goes, these are the books you should have read, there's always a lot of comments after it, which always crack me up too, where somebody's like, I'm surprised you picked that book by this author. You should have chosen this other book by the same author because of blah, blah, blah. Or like, good choice on numbers 42 and 43, because those are both two of the books I come back to over and, so it is like
we get it, you read.
But maybe I should just put out a list that's like, here are the top 400 ship novels you need to read.
Yeah, you piece of shit.
All right. So Amber, we always start the show with a segment we like to call checking in. So why don't we start today with you? Because I feel like I already did mine, basically.
Yeah. I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. First off, I have been getting nearly a full night's sleep this whole week. And it has been a very long time since that's happened. And I forgot what a big difference it makes. I'm like, my job isn't as hard as I remember. And my body doesn't hurt and I'm in a good mood. Wow, sleep's great. I like sleep.
I won't disagree.
Yeah.
I took like a 15-minute nap right before this.
Oh, the best. I think I slept for 5 minutes on my lunch break and I was like, great. I'll take it.
Is that because of the dog that you have not slept?
Yeah. So I know that I'm the boss and I could change this, but he tends to wake me up around 4 a.m. And we don't go out at 4 a.m. He and I go to the couch and go back to sleep. But for a long time, I couldn't really fully go back to sleep. I was just kind of laying there and I have gotten a sleep mask that has beads in it. So because in my living room, we have sort of slat windows in the door and the outside porch light is always on at night. And we don't I think I've talked about this before. I don't have that switch. That is our neighbor. So I can't turn it off even if I want to. And so it's like I have to lay in a very specific way in the living room to not have it feel like, because that early in the morning, any bit of light feels like too much.
Yeah.
And anyway, now that I have I just bring the mask with me at 4 a.m. and then I don't even wake up. I just sort of zombie walk to the couch, put on my mask, and then I'm out. If anything, Smudgy has to be like, hey, we gotta go for a walk. The sun's up, lady. And I'm like, great. This is great. I'm loving this big time.
You do take the mask off before you go for the walk, correct?
Yes.
That seems safer.
Yeah. There's something about it that makes me feel very fancy lady to have a sleep mask. I don't know. I feel like you see that in the movies. It's not like a real life
people
thing.
As far as sleeping, because there's a lot of literature now. There's a lot of stuff online all the time about how
what to do and what you should
sleep
do.
Well, but also how important it is, and how they're realizing now, everybody's all fucked up because they're not sleeping right. They're not sleeping enough. Your blue screen keeps you awake late at night. And, now there's a whole thing about how in the Middle Ages, people used to sleep twice. In other words, you'd go to bed at sundown at 7 o'clock, and then wake up at 2 a.m. and be up for like 3 hours, and then go to sleep again until dawn. And
what would you do for those 2 hours? Oh,
no, I don't know.
Like
just guessing.
Stinky sex.
No, you'd get up and do stuff or read or get something to eat or whatever, but it was like you just slept twice basically.
Well, and isn't there that thing about, was it Ben Franklin who slept every 2 hours or something? There's some like,
I don't know. I mean, I know he invented the stove and kites, but I don't know much more about him. But one of the things that always comes up is like sleep masks. People are always like, you got to wear a sleep mask, because it just keeps all the light out, and light has such a greater effect than people ever thought on your circadian rhythm and whether you're sleeping properly.
Honestly, I feel like a completely different person this whole week. Like, I'm like, my job's not that bad. Like it's crazy how difficult the same task was without sleep and how not difficult it is with sleep. Mm-hmm. What an eloquent way of saying that.
Well, aside from that, I was also just picturing like an evaluation meeting with you. Like your boss is like, so Amber, I just want to know how things are going for you. And you're like, my job's not that bad. And they're like, well, that's good because you're not doing that bad a job. So.
A match made in heaven.
Right.
Well, and it's funny you talk about sleep and the specifics. I think I've mentioned this before, but Jeff needs to have white noise to sleep. Mm-hmm. So like when we first were dating, he always had a fan on, and I get cold very easily. And I was like, I'm dying. Like it makes sense in the summer, but in the winter, can we not?
Oh my God, this might not work out.
So he bought a white noise machine. The whole point is it sounds like a fan, but it's not a fan. It's
not
crazy.
Sure why the noise has to be white, but anyway, go ahead.
It's crazy that we're even around as a species. Like we're so weird. But this morning, that's the other thing about doing everything so early in the morning. So again, he woke me up at 4. I slept till like 6:15 in the living room, which is wow, sleeping in.
Yeah.
And but then I have to get ready to take him for a walk, and I went into the bedroom to get something like a sweatshirt or something. And oh God, this is so boring, but it is what it is. Smudgy. We thought that maybe he was waking me up early because it was cold and he wanted to cuddle. So we got him like a heating pad for his bed. He still wakes me up early. It's whatever. But I was like, oh, I should turn that off. Because like the day before it was on all day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'll go turn that off. And I unplugged his white noise machine. And so then I went to go put it back in, and it's like dark and I'm asleep, So I was just like, I'm making it worse. So I just left it. But I felt bad because I know that is what he needs. And I went for the walk with Smudgy. I came back and the white noise machine was back on. So like that's how much he needs it. That he stumbled out of bed, plugged it in.
Yeah.
And
well, because you guys are clattering around in the living room while he's trying to sleep. It's like, Jesus Christ. Let me get this plugged in.
Yeah, but oh man, I love sleep. It is good. And
no doubt about that.
I love it so much. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was future planning. I'm having some issues with it. I don't think I'm alone, but like I have a good friend, Lampy, is getting married in May in Mexico, but not where my parents live, on the exact opposite side, sort of.
Great. Thanks, Lampy. For nothing.
I know. I was like, oh, maybe I could visit both. And I Googled it, and it's like, it couldn't be farther away. It's like near Cuba, basically.
Right.
But I'm very excited about it. I could use a tropical vacation. I could use hanging out with my friends. I could use getting away from the house. Like I could use seeing people who love each other get married. But I'm like having a hard time pulling the trigger on actually buying the flight and booking the hotel, because
what's going to happen?
What is the future? How can you, and is that forever? Are we like this now? Like,
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I mean, I totally get where you're coming from, because you're like, who knows if this is really going to happen?
Right.
We have no idea.
Right.
I'm definitely, not to get too depressing, but like, I'm feeling it, man. I am feeling this whole thing right now in a way that I never have before. And it is deeply, deeply affecting me, you know? Like, yeah, it's been a long fucking time, and it's trying to figure out what's going to happen next, what's going to go wrong next, what's, you know, where are things going. And it's also, you know, I'm in a position where I'm sorry, I'm making this all about me.
No, I love it. I have nothing to say.
I'm in a position where I'm like teaching 3 classes, working on 3 different projects with different groups of people, and also completely socially isolated. So those are the only interactions I have. And what I've found is that there are things that I would just like to dissect in some of those interactions, and I don't feel like I have the ability to do that, because I'm not like out seeing people on a regular basis. You know, I'm like having phone conversations with people and stuff like that, but it's just not the same thing as being like, you know, somewhere and going like, can you believe this motherfucker said this? Or like, you know, why would somebody do something like that, or whatever? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and what I've found, I'm very lucky that I have Jeff, but like any other conversation I have, it feels like so formal. It's like, can we talk? Instead of like you're saying, like you just bump into somebody and be like, hey, this happened earlier. Like, what do you think? Now it's like, you have to like book a time to talk about it. And it's like, it's not that serious.
And I find that I have, therefore, unprocessed thoughts, if I may coin a phrase, because
I don't know if you coined
I came up with fake news, unprocessed thoughts.
I don't think so.
And paranoid android. No, but like, so, you know, it's the kind of shit where I don't know, talking about it with other people kind of makes it go away. And when it doesn't go away, then you're just kind of stuck with it. Yeah. So that's, you know, that's been something that I have noticed recently, where I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel like it's a good area to be in right now, you know?
Are you still seeing a therapist?
No. Why would I do that? No, I haven't done that in a few years. And you're exactly right. That is the kind of shit you would process with a therapist.
I'm not exactly. I'm just, yeah.
It is the kind of stuff that you would go like, this is something, what, you know,
can I get off my chest, and then it gets,
how do I process this? Yeah. But that's just not where I'm at right now. So it is. Yeah. But then I also, you know, I watched, because I saw it blow up on Twitter. I watched a few minutes of last week's episode of Bill Maher, and he had
you sent it to me.
Barry Weiss on, and she was just,
you didn't send that.
She was like, she was like, I'm done. I'm just done. I'm done with COVID. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I'm done with it. I'm not interested anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. I don't care. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And like 3,000 people died today in the United States of COVID. You know, it's like, you could say you're done with COVID, but COVID is not. Well, what is that from? Where they go, the past is not done with you. It's from some movie or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, it just was so obnoxious. And Maher was kind of in the same vein of like, yeah, who cares? And his thing has always been the only people affected are obese people. So fuck those people.
Oh
It's
yeah,
their
he
fault that they're
hates
fat.
fat
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Um,
Fat phobia is like a whole other thing that we need
right.
to address in this country.
Right.
Because do you know what? Fat people statistically live longer than thin people, and the medical
they bounce off things.
No, but the medical community always says like, "Oh, that's some anomaly," because they want to be able to say like, "You need to lose weight."
Right. Right.
And it's like, it's not an anomaly if it's always the case. Like,
that's the opposite of an anomaly.
Anyway,
somebody buy that guy a dictionary. But yeah, so watching her, and like, she's, I think, not a good person anyway, but watching her go like, I'm just done. I'm done with it. I don't care anymore. I'm going out. I'm going to restaurants. I'm doing my thing, and whatever happens, happens. Who cares? I'm not. That's just there. No. I could never be there. But I also wish that I could be done with this, you know?
Yeah. That you could decide.
Right. That it would be over at some point.
And what I've found, and I'm sure it's sort of the case for you as well, but because I work from home and I'm pretty much a hermit at this point, that different people have different thresholds of what they're comfortable with. And like, Lampy works in a bar. Like, she has to be out in public. And so when she's like, hey, like, the bar's slow, you and Jeff should stop by. Like, she doesn't understand that I'm like, I don't want to go to a bar whether it's slow or not. Like, I don't, but you have to, it's your job. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like,
I do. It's, everybody has their own bubble that they're living in that is different from everybody else's. So something that might be okay for somebody else might not be okay for me, or might not be okay for you, or, you know, and that's like a negotiation every time you interact with other people.
And the other thing that I think we've talked about this before too, but more and more I'm realizing, you know, when people are like, oh, it's fine, like, we've been safe, but like, people's definition of being safe, like, varies wildly.
There is a spectrum.
Yeah. So it's like, it means nothing.
Yeah, it's a rough time. And I was watching a guy. I mean, I'm with you on, like, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, because I just can't imagine that there won't be another variant at some point, or that, you know, something won't. And I was watching a guy who wrote a book about the pandemic of the Spanish flu. Yeah, pandemic.
Everyone, that's the old go-to these days.
And he was talking about how, you know, everybody thinks that pandemic ended in 1918 because that was the year that it started, and that was the year that everybody was all upset about it and was killing lots of people, and people were doing stuff and trying to take precautions and whatever. And then they kind of got to the point where they all turned into Barry Weiss, and they were like, enough is enough. We're done. And there was another wave in 1920 that was worse than 1918. More people died in 1920 than they did in the first year, because people had so gotten over it at that point, you know? And, you know, of course, I'm going to bring it back to politics as well, but there is a whole movement in this country that is deeply connected to profit, I think, that's about making it a politically divisive issue and making it like, own the libs, show them that you don't care, that this is bullshit. There was a, you know, obviously Florida is an extreme example at this point, because the governor there is basically running for president with the MAGA crowd. So he's doing everything he possibly can to make things as bad as possible in every way. But one of the things was he appointed this guy, Surgeon General of Florida, who was one of the people who protested at the Supreme Court building I don't know, a year ago or two, maybe in the summer of 2020. So just a few months after the pandemic started. And he was one of the guys who came out and said, hydroxychloroquine is this, the government is keeping a secret from you because they have a cure and it is hydroxychloroquine. They all, I don't know if you remember this, they all lined up in white coats. And there was one woman they were like frontline doctors, I think was the name of the organization. And there was one of them who was a woman who claimed that women who had ovarian cysts, it was because they were having sex with demons in their sleep. Like that was one of her things, in addition to being anti-masking, and because there was no vaccine at that time, but it was all about hydroxychloroquine. Anyway, this guy is now the Surgeon General of Florida, and he hasn't been confirmed. It's been months now, because that's, again, that's DeSantis taking a trick out of the Trump playbook, which is like, I just put somebody in. We don't worry about the confirmation. Right. We don't keep them there for 222 days or whatever the limit is, then roll on to the next fucking idiot without worrying about getting them confirmed, because they'll do what I want them to do. So they had a hearing yesterday for this guy, and the I don't know, the Democratic leader of the state Senate in Florida was basically grilling him and going, do you think vaccines are effective and helpful? And he would go, I think that I think science is important, and scientifically you have to think about the science and make sure that science is, and she said it again, she goes,
yes or no.
I'm asking you a yes or no question. Do you think vaccines? And he's like, thank you for the question. Again, science has a lot of answers for a lot of questions. And so you have to think about this in terms of science and data. And when you look at data, you have to think about how you're looking at the data and the science, because the science is based on the data.
Someone prepped him on how to answer questions.
Well, but apparently what happened was the Democrats all walked out of the hearing. They were like, he's just bullshitting. Like, he's not answering any questions. So they left. And that is, I guess the only reason I bring that up is because clearly Ron DeSantis thinks it is to his political benefit to confuse people and make this an issue that nobody knows the right answers to. And, people die because of this. This was the same guy who went to a meeting with another state senator, who asked him to put a mask on because she had something that she was concerned about. It turned out it was breast cancer. She had just been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she didn't want to be in the room with somebody who maybe could infect her in some way. She was immune compromised. Right. And she said, could you put a mask on? I have an issue I'm dealing with, and I would like it if you would just wear a mask while we have this meeting. And he said, no, I won't. So, it's all a little much, I guess, is what I would say. And so I get where you're coming from as far as like, who the fuck knows where we're going to be in the summertime.
What is the future?
Yeah. And like, it's one thing to buy an airline ticket and pay the extra $50 or whatever so that you can switch the flight. But it's another thing to reserve a hotel room. Like, there's just so much at stake there, Right.
Well, and also the heartbreak.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I do all this, it's going to be that much more disappointing if it isn't happening.
Right.
Anyway, I think we should take a break.
Great. Let's do that. And we'll come back with parting shots.
All right. It doesn't say it anymore, I guess.
Oh, no. That's weird.
but it's recording.
We're back. You're listening to The Long Shot, I hope, because we don't know. It's time for a segment of the show we like to call Parting Shots. And so I guess tonight I would like for Amber to go first. Amber, what is your parting shot?
Sure. Yeah. I have a very cozy Sleep is Nice sleep masks checking in. And my parting shot is bath time. I've gotten very into baths. I mean, I bathe regularly, but it's usually a shower.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a flex. But I've for a few months now, on Sundays, I take a bath. And I even say, Jeff, like, it's time for a bath ritual. And I take a long time in there, like I just hang out and I'll maybe listen to a sound bath while I'm doing it. And then
double bath.
Yes. And then I might switch to like a comedy podcast. Like I really enjoy it. And it's nice. It's a nice ritual that I have that is doable. And I want to put a call out to listeners on like bath time tips, because I think I would spend even more time in there. But like, I don't have a rich person tub where I could like lay all the way down comfortably. And I'm very small. So I don't know how you take a bath at all, if you ever do.
I do it in the sink here.
Wow, that's impressive. But like, there's not really a good way to have as much of your body submerged as you want it to be.
Right.
Or it's like your neck hurts because it's up against the side of the tub. So I would. It's
always some fucking thing.
Yeah, life's so hard. I would love to hear like bath tips. That sounds really dumb, but it's true. I would love to know what people do in their baths.
And where should people send these tips? Should they send them to the Long Shot Podcast Twitter handle?
Sean.
I was thinking people could tweet them. Maybe tweet them at Long Shot Podcast, but also at the other Long Shot Podcast. So they're like, what the fuck are we getting all these bath tips podcasts?
Bubbles?
Bath tips for, yeah.
And I never really used bath bombs before. Somebody gave me a couple for my birthday. And so I had been incorporating those recently and I love them. So I think I want to add that to the routine. So again, if people have recommendations on bath bombs, tips I want to figure out a way to just stay in the bath for like hours, if at all possible. Like keeping it warm, keeping yourself comfortable, all of it. Bath tips, I would take it because
it seems like over a couple hours the water would get a little chilly,
it's a problem. But I think bath time has been a factor in good sleep time because on bath days, I get why you give a bath to a baby before bed, because I'm like, sleepy time right after.
Well, that's true, but also babies just shit themselves constantly. So
sure. I mean, so do I.
Good point.
So baths are great. Give me your bath tips on Twitter. And that is my parting shot.
Great. I don't have a lot. My only thing is obviously we know that I've always been a TV fan, but even more during the pandemic, I've been watching a ton of shit. And
that was another thing I wanted to bring up, but you go.
No, go
ahead. Station 11, I started it.
Oh yeah.
And
I actually got a text from one of our listeners who said, thank you for the recommendation. So I'm glad that people are enjoying it.
It's like, especially the first episode. Like, I was like, this doesn't feel like a
right. Right. But after you get past that, like,
why are we watching this?
Yeah.
This feels just like what I thought.
But I think to me, that was, to me, that was like cathartic, like it was like, cause it's really about getting through it and getting to the other side and what happens after that,
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. I mean, we already talked about it, but it just was Yeah, people should watch it. I'm glad you're watching it. But here's another TV thing is I have just finished the first half of the 4th season of a show called Ozark on Netflix.
My parents just said they were watching that. I've never seen it.
It's an interesting show. I find it enjoyable, but far from great.
Sure.
It's very difficult. I mean, basically, I talk about this in class all the time when I make assumptions and judgments about TV shows that we're watching in class or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm just bullshitting through what I think the thought process was. But I think with Ozark, their idea was somewhere in the area of let's make Breaking Bad, but let's make the husband and wife both break bad instead of just the husband.
I feel like you're right, just because I feel like it was marketed like that.
Oh, really?
Like the first season. Yeah.
That's entirely possible. But it's very hard. Breaking Bad, first of all, it's hard to live up to Breaking Bad because Breaking Bad is one of the all-time greatest shows. And it's also very hard to sustain that kind of plotting in a way that seems believable, where there's just no way to get out of whatever's going on and things just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And you're like, oh, that's it. This guy's going to die. And then it's not that guy who dies. It's this other guy. And, all this stuff. So it's enjoyable. It's fun. I know there are lots of people who are blown away by it, and I know no shame in that, but I am not blown away by it. I'm like, oh, this is a fun show to watch. But I will say Ruth Langmore is one of my favorite characters on television. She's the actress. The actress's name is Julia Garner, and I think she's fucking amazing. She's incredible. And this season, she's really, especially towards the end, there's like just a lot of stuff that happens.
Is she blonde?
Yeah, she's got blonde curly hair. She's very young.
My mom, when we were talking about it, she's like, I just really like the blonde girl. She's incredible. She's a Spitfire. And I was like, I don't know.
Spitfire.
I think it's hilarious that you and my mom have sort of the same take, just different language for it.
No, but she is a Spitfire, but she's also just had so much difficulty in a believable way in her life. And she's trying so hard to get out of it. And every time she turns around, things just get worse and worse for her. And to me, that's the most believable thread in the whole thing. And part of it is just that I think she's a really, really good actress. Like, before all of this, she was in a show called The Americans, and she had a storyline. She wasn't even on that many episodes, but she was like a teenager that the spy was dating. Like, it was supposed to be this weird, creepy relationship because he was stealing secrets from her father, but he was like using her to get to her father. And she was great on that too, like in a way that I noticed her then. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, holy shit. And of course, I don't pay attention to all this stuff, but the other night after the last episode, I was just looking her up to see what other stuff she was doing. And I didn't even realize, but she has won 2 Best Supporting Actress Emmy Awards for drama over the last 4 years for this show. So it's like,
oh, wow. So people,
which means in 3 seasons, she won 2 Best Actress Awards for Best Supporting Actress. So it's not like anybody's like, who are you talking about?
Right. No, she's very good.
Yeah, she's clearly recognized by her peers, So anyway, I feel like it's a lot to say it's worth watching the show for this one character, but there's other things to recommend the show as well.
But that's basically what my mom said. Like, it's just that one character. It's not just, but that's her favorite part.
Ruth Langmore. She's a Spitfire. She really is a Spitfire, though. It's funny. Anyway, that's my parting shot. Is congratulations, Julia Garner, on your Emmy Award 4 years ago that I didn't know about. And I guess we'll see.
Keep it going, girl.
Yeah,
you go.
I mean, what's crazy is I can't imagine if she's already won it before that she won't get it again this time. Just because this season has been incredible. But anyway, that's our show. So you're gonna go play Wordle.
No. I've done
go
it for
read
the day.
Mouse.
Sure. I'm gonna take a bath and go to sleep.
And we'll see you guys next.
Be safe.
At 2 a.m. after 2 hours I sign off, and no one has come scrape the dead porcupine off the road by your house, where you just kicked me out, 'cause I flat out can't kiss you with food in my mouth. I flipped my lid for the dead pilot starter, had breadsticks for breakfast, so now I have heartburn. I figured I'd find her, 'cause nothing's much finer than you in your apron and me in my sideburns.